will make the recording publicly available on our website. At the end of the presentation, you'll have the link to the website and you'll be able to review it later. If you don't want you to be on the recording, you can turn your camera off. So the access to the video materials, video recording is going to be provided, and you'll be able to view it or listen to it at any time later. We do understand that there could be electricity supply cuts, etc. So for your convenience, the recording is going to be available. So let me give the floor to Albert for welcoming remarks.
No, just we make a little test of the interpretation now. Perhaps it's a good moment. Yes. No, I simply just I'm happy that we can deliver this training to all the Ukrainian beneficiaries of the three programs of Poland, Ukraine, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, Ukraine, and the Black Sea Basin. Or if there's anyone from another program is also welcome, even though Romania Ukraine program still didn't approve the project, but it will be in the near future. So for sure, we're intending to deliver again these trainings when we have the second calls of the current of these programs, or we have the first call of Romania Ukraine. But in any case, welcome to the training. We, as Tatiana said, we are a lot of people, so we are going to try to make it as active as possible. You have Slido, and we will have some quizzes during the event. I don't want to make it long, Tatiana. Perhaps you could give the word to Victoria from the National Authority, from the Secretariat of the Cabinet of Ministers, so that she can give the welcomes, and then we start. I assume it worked well, the interpretation, yes?
So far, no complaints.
Okay.
Okay. Victoria, якщо ви хочете привітати
Victoria, would you like to say a few words as welcoming remarks?
On behalf of the National Authority of Ukraine, first of all, I would like to thank the TSIM team for organization of this training on procurement for our Ukrainian beneficiaries and our Ukrainian controllers within Interact Next programs. Furthermore, we are grateful to managing authorities for your participation and involvement in this event, that you found time to be with us today. Thank you very much. And I think I will continue in Ukrainian for convenience of our Ukrainian beneficiaries. Thank you, colleagues. Вітаю, колеги, ще раз.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. On behalf of the National Authority, I'm happy to see so many participants and such high engagement in this training. The event is organized by a TSIM project supported by the National Authority for Ukrainian partners, for those who were awarded the contracts and implement their projects within the framework of the program. One of the requests on behalf of the Ukrainian beneficiaries is to do with the requirements and rules of public procurement. And therefore, this training is going to be dedicated to the main requirements and rules of public procurement within the framework of Interact Next and Index 2 in particular, within the framework of Interact Next. And we have representatives of the State Audit Service present in this training. They have the mandate of the National Controller within the Interact Next program. Thanks a lot for being with us. National Authority is going to be here today, and let me underscore that we remain open for any support and assistance that you might need at the national level. I wish all of us fruitful training, get answers to your questions, enjoy it. Thank you. Tatiana, over to you. Thanks a lot, Victoria, for welcoming remarks. Without much ado, let's move over to the training itself. I'll start with a brief intro. Let me just remind you that the questions should be asked at slide platform. The event is meant to last for 3 hours. I do understand that it's pretty difficult to stay through, so it's not going to be in the lecture like you might have at the university. We'll have questions, we'll have quizzes, and quiz is not really to assess your knowledge. It's going to be anonymous. We don't know who responded and how. We see just general answers. It's more for you, for testing your understanding, whether you got us right, whether the information is delivered and is digested by you. So we all have different background and different level of master in terminology. So the idea of quizzes that you'll have in the course of the training is just to test yourself, your own knowledge with respect to information that is going to be delivered. A few words about testing. I know that there are lots of rumors about us, allegedly we are a European Commission, etc. No, we are not a European Commission. We are a group of experts, and the group of experts has been working for a while as a team. We are funded by the European Commission, that's true, but the idea is to build a bridge between the European Commission and the projects and provide support and assistance to you in implementing all of your ideas so that you would prevent and avoid any potential issues with verification and eligibility of expenses. So you can go to our website and read more detailed information about us. Before we get started, two caveats. The first one is all the training materials that you will see today are developed by TASIM project. These are not European Commission documents. There is no IP of a European Commission for this project. In the course of implementation, there might be some contradictions. Everything is subject to change, so please keep an eye on update. So it doesn't mean that everything that you're going to see matches European Commission position. So that's just general information for you as to the scenes. So that means that you won't be able to sue us in the European Court, neither us or any expert that's training materials. It's not consultations. So that's an introductory session. Introductory means that we provide an overview and provide fundamentals in introduction to that. Here is the reason for that. In the previous stage, when we had ENI CBC, there was a difference because public beneficiaries were to apply national legislation. A lot of public beneficiaries were not happy with respect to changes because at the moment public and private beneficiaries are to apply Appendix 2 when it comes to financial matters. So today's focus is going to be on what to do and what to start with, how to apply these norms, and what should be paid special attention to. There were several examples of failure to apply these norms and repercussions or consequences that it might have on expenditure verification. This session is for beneficiaries and Interact Black Sea Basin, HASCRA program and PLUA programs controllers. So that's a training. It's not a consultation session. So if you have any questions on procurement with respect to specific projects are not going to be provided. It's not because we don't know what to answer. We are aware of all the answers that should be provided, but there is a hierarchy that we should abide by. If that's a specific question on the project, you should forward it to the secretariat or to the program respective program body. So we do understand that there could be complex issues, but we do not work directly with beneficiaries, and we do not provide any consulting to them, not only on procurement, but any other matter, because it's not the goal of our project. Let's move over to the training, why there is a need and why procurement is a complex process. Those who have been participating in cross-border cooperation programs, you know that when it comes to procurement, plans and reality could be different. You can plan one time frame, so in reality
ціни, помінялася потреба, і тому якби досить часто виникають проблеми ще на етапі планування. Це не означає, що все пропало, так? Тобто завжди можна
adjustment in comparison to what you planned. There is no drama there. You can notify national authority and introduce adjustments, amendments, and remedy the situation. But if you believe that procurement is a simple thing, it's not quite right. Again, it's not our scheme. We Bordeaux took it from DG Regio, and they are saying that procurement process is made of 5 major blocks, and the first is not announcement and sending out invitations. It's not the call itself. It's the assessment as to what you need. And it's not only about, let's say, I want to procure this type of vehicle, a computer or equipment or anything. It's about assessment and analysis and market analysis. What is accessible there and whether the procurement can take place per se. So that's assessment that you have to do before the invitation, and it's not your needs assessment, that's market assessment, generally speaking. As soon as you know what is happening and what you can get, you can start drafting the procurement documents. Again, today we'll speak about this in the next blocks, especially those that cover documents. You can partly use the documents from the previous times only when you make sure that it complies with the Annex 2 requirements to financial agreement. So you cannot copy-paste the previous stuff. You can pay attention to specificities and standards that are there. You have to pay attention to criteria and time limit, especially that's for public beneficiaries, where time limits could be different from the ones that are stipulated by the law of Ukraine on public procurement. So you have to use the time limit that is recommended by Annex 2, or rather required by Annex 2 to financing agreement. A lot of attention is paid to publicity, namely where the announcement is to be made. The typical mistake from the previous times, so the publication is of no importance. It's available in Prozora and that's it. If publicity is not fully provided for, so that would require financial adjustments that you normally try to avoid in the future. As soon as you collected the bids, then that's assessment stage that comes next with its own specificities. There are some mistakes when the criteria of avoiding eligibility, admissibility, all of that is mixed up. We are going to discuss that. Then the award stage and implementation stage, which is having its specificities, and Annex 2 has some things to this end as well, and you have to pay attention to it. The main goals of procurement and arranging for it, the national law of Ukraine, public procurement, you remember that these principles are covered at the very beginning. They are in line with the principles that are stated in Annex 2 to financing agreement, but it's not always the case when in the course of implementation is in line with the requirements. So before we move over to the procedure, let me just underscore the importance of these principles. Again, that's performance, that's the best correlation between employed resources and the process and the delivery. It doesn't mean that it is cheaper. The quality should be provided for. Effectiveness when the contract's delivery contributes to the accomplishment of the goals of the project as they are set, and compliance, so the procedures are in line, in compliance with the rules in the course of the entire cycle. What are the most frequent issues that could crop up, and what should you pay attention to given your previous experience, including what could be red flags for the controllers? Who wins the tenders in your organization? It might be the same person, the same business, the same institution, and that's a red flag for the inspector. So you have to answer the question, why is it so? Is it the best supplier that meets the major principles that I've spoken about before, or something is wrong there? So you have to make sure that there is no conflict of interest there.
Whether the work performed indeed satisfies your needs, and is there any correlation between the efforts spent and the outcome? So when we spend something, we always do this cost and benefit analysis. It's not a goal per se. We need to assess the efforts invested. And then we actually also assess the efficiency of criteria for selection for purposes of contract award. You remember that actually the project cannot be extended, so the duration of procurement procedure also needs to be taken into account. So the key point that you need to take away is whether we apply correctly the third principle of the rational sound financial management, which means that you ensure the best quality for the best price and respective efficiency. Here you can see some links to our site. You can use this platform in order to be always aware of any changes. Now I will stop my presentation and I will invite to the floor to my colleague Albert, who will give you the general description of the procurement procedure as they are described in the attachments.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tatiana. I have to say that we have a first brave participant sending questions in Slido. Okay, so I encourage you to continue. We will try to answer them. It's a good question. We will answer it in due time. Okay, so let's go for this second presentation, which is a short one but a very important one. Which are let me do just a short introduction on all this new legal framework that we have on the table. So as Tatiana insisted, and we will perhaps repeat a number of things during the training today, but if we do it, it's because they are important. We have, you see that we changed from, for the ones who have experience in the past, our programs are not called anymore E&I CBC, now they are called Interreg, and it means that we are now in a family of around 100 programs throughout Europe, Interreg programs, and we have to abide by the rules of this Interreg framework. It means that we have a EC regulation, a regulation from the European Commission, where there are two options in the regulation. A first option, which is only applicable to contracting authorities and entities in member states. So if you are lead partners and you have partners in the member states who are contracting authorities, they will use their own national legislation. But in all the other cases, it means all partners in any partner country, of course, in Ukraine, and even private partners in member states, they have to use different rules. These rules apply to all Interreg programs. So I mean, if you are in several Interreg programs, well, that's why they we put together beneficiaries from 3 programs. Any program Interreg program you participate, these rules apply. Okay, that's it. Then applies both to public and private. This is very important. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're public, you're private, it doesn't matter which is your legal status, you need to apply these rules that we are going to explain now. And as Tatiana said, forget about what was used in the previous period for the ones who have experience. You know that you have in your law, in your procurement law, in the Ukrainian procurement law, there's an article, which is Article 6.1, that allows for the use of the rules of the international donor when the international donor is obliging to use these rules. So you are protected in that sense because the law foresees also the law stipulates what happens when the donor providing funds is obliging you to use different rules. So you can use them, there's no worry about this. So basically, just to be clear, what you have to use is the rules in the financial regulation as stipulated in the Interreg regulation. Just to make it simple, these rules are compiled in a document which is an annex to the international agreement signed between the European Commission and Ukraine and the managing authorities of the programs. So this Annex 2 that we are going to see today with a little bit of detail, just a little bit, this is the compilation of all the rules that are in the financial regulation of the European Commission. Then there may be some elements that are not mentioned in this annex, but they are compulsory according to your national legislation that perhaps can be used, but only if we talk about different elements that are not in Annex 2. The best example would be the use of Prosoro. Okay, so your national legislation is obliging for the use of Prosoro. Annex 2 says nothing about electronic platforms. So if you are obliged to use Prosoro, usually in your daily life, this obligation remains. But in general, please take into account you cannot use national legislation, and you cannot use, I don't know if anyone is using in other frameworks the procedures in Prague, which is the practical guide for the use of external funds. If you are there, you cannot use them. So we insist, Annex 2, all the rules that stem from the financial regulation, and Prosoro and little else from your national legislation. So let's go to this Annex 2. This Annex 2 of the financing agreement, which is published in the website of the program. To my understanding, it was published in the websites of the programs, and it was published also during the calls for proposals as an annex, as a document for information. We understand that probably at that stage when you were applying, you did not read the document, but what is this document, why this document was built, and let me simply say that it's built because there's Article 58 of the Interreg regulation. This Article 58 says that there are a number of provisions in the financial regulation that have to be applied. By the way, so all this part on the Title 6, then there's an annex in the financial regulation that has to be applied, but not all provisions apply, some yes, some no, so it's not easy. And then we have Article 179 on the rule of origin and nationality, which simply does not apply. So you want to buy computers from China in a Chinese website, go and buy them. I mean, there's no problem in buying computers from any country in the world. I mean, there's no limitation for that. So let me explain, but all this was a little bit complicated. So all these rules are intertwined among themselves. So the European Commission thought that it would be a little bit dangerous just to leave a reference to Article 58 of the Interreg regulation. So they thought that perhaps it would be good, in order to reduce the risk, it would be good to cook a document, which is basically the compilation of all the rules. When you will read Annex 2, which to my understanding is available also in Ukrainian, but please take into account that the original one is English. All these intertwined provisions are in one single document, which is a 20 pages document, so it's something readable. It's something easy to follow. So our recommendation, a strong recommendation today, is basically please read this Annex 2. This Annex 2, which is structured in four blocks, basically. One block on general provisions and preparation, another one on technical specifications, another one on submission evaluation and award criteria, and a last short one on contract performance. Today we're going to do a fast walk through all these sessions. You see that this structure more or less in the sense of the procurement cycle. So this is the document that you need to follow, you need to read, you need to follow, you need to understand. Okay, and this is the goal of today, as Tatiana told you at the beginning. So please, before launching any procedure, before doing any procurement procedure, it would be good that you go through it and you identify, we will see today, which type of procedure applies and then which are the rules that apply. That's all for me, Tatiana. I switch back. Wait a minute.
Дякую,
Yes.
Альберт.
Yes, thank you. Let me stop sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
І тепер ми перейдемо до
So
нашого
now we will
першого
move forward
першого
with our
опитування. Це всього
first
4 питання. У вас буде 4 хвилини, щоб
question.
відповісти.
I mean, first
Тобто ви
quiz,
можете
you'll have more
підготувати,
minutes to answer, so you
ще раз.
can take your time to
Опитування
think.
анонімне, це просто для вас,
Plus,
наскільки
this
просто ви
polling
зрозуміли, про
is
що ми говоримо.
anonymous,
І для нас
just
ще
for
раз
us to
шанс,
understand,
так,
to assess
побачити,
your
наскільки
understanding.
засвоюється матеріал.
And for
Всі
you, that's a
частини
great
ми
chance
просто
to
дамо
check
себе.
whether
Ми не
you
будемо
really
ніколи
understand the
запитувати, чому
material
саме
or
так ви
not,
відповіли. Тобто
ask
вони, як то кажуть,
about
прямі,
details of your
як
answer
літачки. Тому
anybody.
спробуйте. Я
So
запрошую.
give it a try. I'm watching this quiz.
Я сподіваюся, що всі його бачать.
I hope all of you can
Якщо
see
ні,
it.
скажіть.
If not, just let me know.
Знову таке опитування цілком
Again,
базується
This quiz is
на
based upon
тому, що ви тільки що почули.
what you have just heard.
Я бачу, що йдуть відповіді, і
I
це
can
означає, що
see
всі
the
бачать
answers
опитування. Тому
coming,
я
so
вас,
all of
як
you
то
can
кажуть,
see this
мотивую.
quiz.
Будь ласка,
So
намагайтеся
please
якомога
try
повніше відповісти на
to
питання.
give answers to all the questions.
Так, у нас вже більше половини
All
відповіло
right.
на перше
More
питання.
than 50% have
І дуже
already answered
приємно
the
бачити,
first
що
question.
більше половини відповіла
I'm
правильно.
pleased to see that most of these answers are correct.
Мгм. Так, у нас плавно ми переходимо до четвертого питання. Бачу
I
динаміку.
can see some people are already on number 4.
Так.
All right.
Ну, 75, 76.
75,
Ну, давайте хоча б до 85 дотягнемо.
percent. Let's make it at least 85.
А то буде вибірка нерепрезентативна.
Otherwise, this sample will not be representative.
Бачу 80.
I can see 80% achieved.
Ну, ще кілька секунд.
Just
Активніше під'єднуйтесь, тому що
a few more
80%
seconds,
серед
please.
восьми, ну, якось маловато.
Be more active because
83.
80 is a bit low. Well, now it's 83.
Так, ну далі цифра не рухається, тому я
All
думаю,
right,
що я
numbers
закрию
is not
опитування.
growing, so I will
У мене
probably close this
83
quiz.
учасника відповіли.
83%
І
participants
зараз я покажу
gave the responses. Now let me share the
Так, скажіть,
results
будь
with you.
ласка, результати видно?
Can you see the results?
Так, видно. Добре, бачу
You
посмішки, що видно.
So I can see
Щодо
smiles.
опитування. Перше питання у
So
нас було
first question
дуже
was
просте.
a very
Так,
simple
якщо у
one.
вас є питання
If
щодо
you have any
публічних
questions
закупівель,
with
що
regard to public
стосуються конкретного
procurement
проекту, до кого ви маєте
that apply to
звернутися?
specific
У вас
project,
є
who
4
should you
варіанти
contact?
відповіді.
And you had
Ну,
4
приємно, що
options.
11 учасників
So it's a
довіряють
pleasure
національному органу
to see
управління, але
that
це не є перша
11%
інстанція,
of
куди ви маєте
participants trust
звернутися.
the
Тобто це
national
не є
authority,
безпосередня
but that's
фігурка
not the
національного
first
органу управління.
instance
Вони,
which you should
звичайно, повинні
constant
вас підтримувати. Якщо
contact.
є
Of
складна
course, they
ситуація, вони
are
можуть вам
expected to
допомогти,
support
але це буде
you, to
тривалий
help
процес,
you
оскільки необхідно
under some
звернутися до
circumstances
Мінекономіки,
that
але
this
в принципі,
process
якщо ми говоримо про
takes
правила
a lot
програми, то
of
це не
time.
національне
So speaking
управління.
about the program rule,
Далі
that's
у нас
not
є відповіли,
national
що третє.
authority.
Значить, тут однозначно ні.
8%
Якщо ви
answered
якщо ви
that's
звернетеся до
sin.
нас, то ви
Of course
отримаєте
not.
стандартну
If you
відповідь, що,
contact
будь
us,
ласка,
you'll
шановний
get the
бенефіціар,
standard response.
розуміємо
Please, esteemed beneficiary,
вашу
we
ситуацію, але
understand
в першу чергу ви
your
маєте
situation, but
звернутися
first of
до
all, you need
управління
to
вашої
contact
програми або спільного
your
секретаріату.
program management authority
4
or
обрали
joint
державну виписку
secretariat.
служби, щоб так вже
3
точно
individuals
знали, що
select that
Державна аудиторська
State
служба, в
Audit
принципі,
Service of
навіть не має
Ukraine.
права вас
Mm,
консультувати.
They don't even
Обласна
have any right
Державна
to
аудиторська
give you
служба
any
буде вас
consultations
перевіряти.
because
І Державна
later on
аудиторська
they
служба
will
не має
check
права
you, they will
перевіряти те,
audit
що вона
you,
не
and
консультувала
they
по
cannot
договору про
really
конфлікт
audit
інтересів. Тому
those who they
однозначно в
have
першу чергу маєте
consulted.
звернутися
So
до
first of all, you need to
органу
contact
управління відповідною
the
програмою
Program
або
Management
спільного
Authority
секретаріату.
or
Але як я
Joint
сказала,
Secretariat.
приємно, що 60
But as I said,
учасників ваша служба
60% of
відповіли правильно.
participants
Тепер після цього
gave the right
цікаво, ви теж
answers.
знаєте, куди треба
So,
діти,
and now you know for sure
Далі.
uh,
Друге
um,
питання було, що
who you
повинні
have to contact.
застосовувати
Second
українські
question about
публічні бюджети для
applicability
організації публічних
of
закупівель.
different
Те, що
provisions for
пропонує
Ukrainian
національне
public
законодавство,
beneficiaries.
це частково правильно.
What
Чому
should
частково?
apply?
Тому що
So,
національне законодавство тут недостатньо.
some people
Праг
said it was
однозначно
national
ні, це не
legislation. That's
застосовано
right, but
наразі.
not fully
Додаток 2 до
correct. Prague
фінансової
not
угоди
applicable.
теж частково
Annex
правильно,
2
тому
to
що право
financial
вимагає, що ви
agreement
маєте
is partially
застосувати і додаток
correct.
2 до
But the
фінансової
real
угоди.
right answer is that you have to apply both Annex
В
2
принципі, те, що
and
приємно, що ви
national
зацікавлено правильно.
legislation.
Далі,
Again, the
українські приватні
majority gave the
бенефіціари,
right answers.
що ви
Then
повинні
private
застосовувати.
beneficiaries, what
Знову таки,
they should apply.
додаток 2 до
Again,
фінансової угоди,
Annex
так,
2 to
тобто не Праг,
financial
не національне законодавство,
agreement,
бо в
not
принципі на
national
вашого
legislation, not
бенефіціара у нас
Prague.
немає закону України
We
про
do not
публічні
have a
закупівлі для
law of
приватних
Ukraine on
бенефіціарів.
public
Тому
procurement
він не
for
покриває
private
вас, додаток 2 до
beneficiaries.
фінансової угоди це ваше
So,
все.
Annex to the
І
financial
далі питання було
agreement
питання
is
ринку. Так,
what
якщо у нас
you
норми
really
національного
need to look
законодавства
at.
дозволяють
And
скоротити терміни для деяких публічних
then
закупівель, то
the
що повинен
question
робити
about
публічний бенефіціар?
the
Застосовувати
reduction of the
національне
terms
законодавство чи
of some
дотримуватися
specific
вимог додатку
procurement.
2 до фінансової угоди.
So
І
should
тут
you comply
однозначно
with
правильна
this
відповідь
national requirement
додаток
of
2
the
до
national
фінансової угоди
legislation? The
теж,
right
тому
answer
що
is
досить
it's
часто додаток
Corey
вимагає
should comply
дотримуватися
with
більшої
Annex
кількості
2
днів, да, давати,
to
дати
financial
більше,
agreement
якби часу
because
на
you are give
опрацювання, на
more time to
верифікацію, на
process your
оцінювання, тому
documentation
відповідно
to
це
apply to
якби для вас
conduct
тягар, який ви
assessments.
маєте
So for you,
виконувати.
that's the
Знову таки
direct
приємно, що
provision. So
61
again,
учасник відповів правильно.
I am pleased to say
Тому я думаю, що тепер
61% of
у вас
responders
не
gave
буде сумніву
their
про
right
те, що
answer.
слід
So now,
звертатися до
since
тих,
now
що
on, you will not
обов'язково
have
питання.
doubts on
Зараз
who you
я
should
передаю
contact.
слово
and what the procedure should be. Now I'll pass the floor to Albert. He will move forward with the next block, which is will be kind of a tour around the Annex 2. So the picture slightly changed because that's the longest presentation and probably the most complicated.
Okay, thank you, Tatiana. Yes, I will share this presentation between Tatiana and me, and let me insist there, and I'm apologize for repetitions. I mean, whenever you have a provision in the national legislation and in Annex 2, always Annex 2 applies. So you can only apply national legislation when there's nothing about this specific topic, like Prosoro, in Annex 2. But when you have the same provision on whatever, on thresholds for procurement, on type of procurement, on what to apply, etc., in Annex 2 and in the national legislation, it's Annex 2, the one which applies always. So let's go with a little bit of calm through these. We are on time for the moment. So basically, the structure, as we're saying, of Annex 2 is that we have this block A on general provisions. We have a block B on the types of procedures, a block C on preparation, and then technical specifications, submission, and contract performance. What all these blocks do is it's a mirror. If we can use the metaphor, we mirror the financial regulations. So you will see that all the points, we call points, they are not articles. In Annex 2, it's points. Every point in Annex 2, it says, okay, this point is Article 160 of the financial regulation, or this is Article 170 plus point 3 of Annex 1, etc. So you have the clear link between this document, each provision, each point in the document, and the financial regulation, which at the end is the basis of all that we are of all the provisions that we are using today. So if we go to the general provisions, we have something which is very, let's say, the first one, general principles that you can find in any law procurement in all countries. So there's nothing new: transparency, proportionality, equal treatment, broad competition, and of course, one of the let's say obsessions for all the controllers is to check that there's no artificial split. We will see later on the thresholds. But I mean, what's clear is what I cannot do is, instead of doing one procedure of 30,000 euros, I do two of 15,000, because then the procedure is simpler. So artificial split is something which is penalized, heavily penalized, and it is usually quite easy to check. So no artificial split would be one of the key messages on these general principles. The second one is on the terminology, on the nomenclature. On this, you have to use the nomenclature of the common provisions vocabulary, which is it is published, and you will find in Annex 2 how to use it. But when you publish a tender, you have to make reference to this common provision regulation. And then we go to the publicity. Okay, so there are a number of procedures, depending on the amount, that have to be published in the official journal of the European Union. It doesn't matter that you are an institution or an organization which is in Ukraine, which is not yet European Union, but when you have procedures that are over certain thresholds, you have to go to this tender, to this link, to this TED website, the Tenders Electronic Daily, and you have to publish. So we are talking when we have procedures over 300,000 euros for for either services or supplies, or where you have works over 5 million euros. If for the ones that are beneficiaries of the Black Sea Basin, you know that you will never have to do this. So the projects in the Black Sea Basin are not so big that you should publish, but in the other programs, perhaps you have some procedures that are above these thresholds, so you have to go to this electronic platform of the European Union and publish in English your procedure there. What else? Types of procedures. I mean, when we look at the Annex 2, we see that the type of procedures are let's say, in a kind of two type of classifications. No? One classification is linked to publicity. So we have the procedures structure in the sense that published in the official journal of the European Union, or tenders published locally, or no publicity, no open publicity at all is needed. So this is one type of classification. On the other side, we have to see how the procedure going to take place. So if you're going to do a tender, a normal tender, or you're going to do an electronic auction, or you are going to use electronic catalogs, which is also possible. Okay, so this is the two ways of classifying the procedures that we have in this in Annex 2. If we go to the first one, so the type of procedure by publicity, these I mean it's a classical type of procedure. We have what we call open procedure and restricted procedures. These ones we mean the procedures published in the official journal of the European Union. So these two first ones, open procedure and restricted procedure, published at the European level, so over the amounts that I already mentioned before. Then we can have local open procedure, basically for supplies. And then we have what we call simplified procedure. We will see in detail. What we have single tender, direct award. And the last one is it is possible for low amounts to simply accept an invoice. I mean, what I was telling, the example I gave before. So you want to buy one computer, you simply go to let's say Alibaba platform, to Amazon, you buy the computer, you receive the invoice, it's okay. So it is, there's no problem for below certain thresholds just to have the invoice. Of course, no procedure at all is needed. I am mentioning an American and Chinese platform on purpose, just to mention that there's no limitation on this. And then, of course, we have the negotiated procedure, which is something exceptional when you can have higher amounts without publicity. But this, please be very careful when you use the the negotiated procedure without publicity. There are very specific cases when you can do it, and in other you cannot, and they are not the same than the national legislation in Ukraine. So please, if you are intending to do this, have a special reading. And my recommendation in any case is do not try to read it all. So for me, the first step would be go to your procurement plan, see which are the procedures that you have, identify how these procedures fit in one of these categories, and then before launching with calm, before preparing all the procurement procedure, simply read that part. So if you don't have any open tender for equipment, then don't look this part. I mean, so the document is not so long, but of course, no need to read it all. Or there's a long provisions on negotiated procedure. Okay, so see, if you're not going to use it, don't read it. So procurement plan, identify the type of procedure, and then read what concerns this type of procedure in Annex 2. Just a little bit of a little nuance on the terminology, because in Annex 2 is talking all time about candidates and tenders, both of them. So candidates and tenders. So when we mean candidates is when we are having a call for expression of interest. In the big procedures, in the restricted procedure, for example, I simply launch a call for a first call, say who would be interested in applying, and I put a number of criteria there, and then I have candidates that submit a first proposal, and then only the ones meeting the criteria are invited to submit a full tender, and these are tenderers. Okay, so we have the candidates and the tenderers, simply because if you find these two words, let's say having candidates is quite exceptional, so you will normally have tenders. The thresholds are the same that you knew in the past. I mean, the thresholds didn't change. So as we said, the publication in the official journal of the European Union is above 300,000 euros for services and supplies, 5 million for works. In local open tender, not applicable for services. It's only applicable above 100,000 euros and up to 300,000 for supplies, and between 300,000 and 5 million for works. So probably all of you that will need to publish tenders will be in these limits between these thresholds. So it will be publication locally, and on that sense, you have Prosoro. I mean, what else? I mean, it's quite easy to prove that you had the right publicity because you can use it. Or the simplified procedure that we will see in detail, where you will have to request several. You have to invite tenders, but not publicize it. You see that demands are quite high for services, between 20,000 and 300,000, and a little bit lower for supplies. Then you have the single tender, where you will have only to request, if you wish, only one offer. We anyhow strongly recommend to request always more than one. It's not compulsory, but it's recommendable. We will talk a little bit later about how to prevent mistakes and about how to prevent, for example, conflict of interest. I mean, showing that you requested several offers is a good signal that you are not favorizing a specific provider for this service. So our recommendation, even though it's not compulsory, would be to request more than one offer. And then finally, as I was saying before, below 2,500 euros, you go to the shop and you buy. That's it. You organize an event in a hotel and you pay 1,000 euros. Well, you can choose a hotel. You receive the invoice. You don't need to make a complicated procedure for that. You see that all the thresholds are in euro, and you're going to work in hryvnias. So you have please to apply the exchange rate of Infor-Euro. Okay, perhaps Tatiana, if we can put the link to Infor-Euro in the chat. So you have to use the exchange rate of Infor-Euro of the month of the launch of the procedure to determine if you are above or below a certain threshold. So if you are close to 20,000 and you don't know if it is 20,500 or 19,400, then you please apply this. Last week we were delivering a training in the Republic of Moldova, and a beneficiary came to me and said, look, I want to buy certain equipment and the price is 2,700 euros. So, well, you cannot accept the invoice. You go to the following procedure. You go to single tender. It's only 200 euros. Yes, it's only 200 euros, but you have to follow single tender. I mean, just €1 above the threshold, and you have to apply. So please go to Infor-Euro, check the exchange rate at the month of the launch of the procedure. Don't go to the national bank. At the Infor-Euro month of the launch of the procedure, and then you can decide the terms. And please document it. Yeah? I mean, this is very important also. Whatever you do, there's a second concept which is very important. We are going to put a stress in certain things, which is called audit trail. Basically, is that everything you do during the whole procedure, during the whole contracting cycle, has to be documented. So if you went to Infor-Euro, if you made all these calculations, just print it, have a document showing why you determined that this is the type of procedure, okay, according to the nature of the work, and according to the amounts in hryvnias, and according to the conversion in euro. More. So you have all these detailed procedures here that in several points, just a list of elements that are there. You can find them, and I insist, just read the ones that you need. So you don't have any electronic auction, don't read it. You have it, go and read it in detail. They are not so long. For each procedure, they are not so long. Okay, Tatiana, I assume that there is no question in slide or link to what we are saying so far, no?
There are some questions, and I suggest, since we are ahead of time, that we take those questions after you end the presentation. Yeah.
You want to take them now?
No. You just can finish your part, and then we can
take the presentation. Okay, we can take the
question. They take the quiz, you read the questions, we discuss it, and then we can answer. Because the first block, I think we can answer now.
Okay, perfect. So we will answer them after I finalize this first part of the presentation. So let's go to the preparation. On the preparation of the tender, the first thing is that you are not obliged, but you may carry out some preliminary market consultation. Again, it depends on what you are intending to do. It is absolutely necessary or not. But I mean, it would be good if you are even for small amounts. Perhaps it's better than for open tender. In open tender, somehow, the risk is that if you don't do a preliminary market consultation, then you simply nobody is submitting a tender because the price is not correct, because the technical requirements that you're putting in the tender are not correct. So this is the risk. In a small amount, I mean, when you're going to buy one computer for a specific thing, perhaps it would be good to go even just to some websites and see which is the price of the computer that I need, and again document all this research that I did. So it is not compulsory, but again, it is recommended. Then we have the a possibility which is there, which is on the procurement document. Sorry, what should be the content of the procurement documents is the subject matter. What are we talking about? What are we buying? What services are we buying? Which equipment are we buying? Then we will see them a little bit more in detail, the exclusion, selection, and award criteria. So on which basis I will take the decision on who is deciding, so who is going to be awarded, to get the contract. We will also talk about the evaluation committee later on. Please consider that on this aspect of the who takes the decision, there's a big difference between Annex 2 and the national legislation. So please take this into account. We'll talk later. And then on minimum requirements on environmental, social, and labor law. And so these are the elements that should be clear in the procurement documents, except below 2,500. It is also possible to do a joint procurement. It's not usual, it's exceptional, but sometimes it may have sense. Then you may get more efficiency. It is, of course, in the same project. 2 or 3 beneficiaries are buying exactly the same, and perhaps doing the same tender is a way of getting better prices or getting harmonized equipment, or the same type of equipment everywhere, etc. So this is a possibility which is there. It's not simple, but if you feel that you want to do it, it's a possibility. What else? I mean, point 14. For me, point 14 of the Annex 2 is a must read. You have to read Annex 2, yes or yes. If you miss the elements in Annex 2, then you are risking committing mistakes. Annex 2 is one of the keys to the eligibility of the expenditure, that the expenditure is considered acceptable by the managing authority and you receive the full grant for it. It includes 2 things. First thing is which are the documents, so which are the procurement documents that you have to publish. The second thing is which is the content of these documents, which is also very, very, very important. So there are 4 documents that have to be prepared when I'm preparing a tender. First one is the contract notice. When I publish a tender, an open tender, then you have to prepare a contract notice, which is what is published in Prosoro or in the official journal of the European Union. If there's no open tender, this document is not necessary. But then you have the invitation to tender. You have the tender specifications, terms of reference, and all these things, and you have draft contracts. So when you launch a procedure, the supplier or the service provider has the right to know which will be the contractual conditions later on. Okay, so it's important that they know not only what you're requesting at the tendering stage, but what will be the obligations when the contract is signed. So this draft contract has to be published. Just an example, and I think it's very clear as an example of why we are insisting so much on please read the Annex 2 is, for example, the invitation to tender. This is just a letter. It's just a letter. It's just a letter where I send to 3 potential providers saying, look, we would like to receive your best offer for these questions. But there are 6 minimum elements that have to be in this tender. And perhaps when you are doing these kind of things in other contexts without the EU funds, perhaps you don't include all this. Elements like, for example, so you are obliged to accept that we will inform you by electronic means. I mean, it's one sentence. It's not complicated. Or saying that, sorry, but during the from the invitation to you cannot call me and start asking questions. So I mean, it's not possible to have contact with us, or your tender will have a validity of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever you decide. But I mean, these are the rest of the content. You are absolutely free to decide, but these 6 points have to be there, yes or yes, and some of them may not be the usual ones. So please do not procure as usual. Do not prepare the letters as usual. Second element, which is also on the tender specifications, you will need to have clear exclusion and selection criteria. There are exceptions below 15,000, but you can read them. You will have all the technical specifications, if you accept several variants or not, the requirement to indicate the nationality of the tender. So even though we indicated that you can buy from wherever you want, you can buy Chinese, you can buy American, you can buy from wherever, the tender has to indicate nationality, because it is also true that there are sanctions in the European Union. Okay, so if you go to the website, which is sanctionsmap.eu, then I will put it in the chat later on. Then you will see that in general, as a general principle, there's no limitation in the nationality and the origin of the goods, but of course there are sanctions for certain countries, and then of course the countries with sanctions evidently you cannot buy. And then on the draft contract, again, there are 6 points that are compulsory.
Dal
Okay.
проект контракту то також 6. Sorry.
Sorry. I mean, there are the 6 points that are compulsory. Again, I mean, you can use your usual contract template. There's no problem for that. But please check that all these 6 elements are there. And anything else, somehow, we don't care from the point of view of the compliance with Annex 2. What we care is that these 6 elements, at least these 6 elements, are there. This is the main messages. So we don't only have a list of documents, we also have certain elements for all the 3 ones that we saw. So for the technical specifications and for the invitation to tender, for all these 3, we have minimum elements that have to be there, yes or yes. On this, please, you cannot fail. Okay, I will stop now. We have a second quiz, and then we answer the questions, and then Tatiana will continue. That's the plan, Tatiana?
No, I think we can ask, we have about like 10 minutes spare time. We can answer questions now, and then we switch to quiz. Yeah. So I'll start because it's in Ukrainian, and it's related to Prozoro.
Okay.
Тобто перше питання щодо термінів процедур закупівлі.
So the first question is about the terms of procurement procedure. If Prozoro establishes some rule, how do you deal with Annex 2? I remember I worked at different platforms, Zakupki UA. I understand all these rules are updated, so if you cannot change the procedure, but you need it, then if it's technically possible, you need to contact the national authorities. They would contact the provider in order to ensure this possibility for you. You just need to specify that. Another question, what would be the audit service reaction if Annex 2 is in conflict with new laws of Ukraine on public procurement? First of all, there is no conflict because actually the rules of the Annex 2 are more conservative than the rules provided with the Ukrainian law. But also there are international obligations of Ukraine in the procurement, with regard to procurement. So if there is an international agreement ratified by the Parliament of Ukraine, then the rules of this agreement will prevail. Even if the procedure for procurement is different from what is provided by the law, then certainly the International Treaty of Ukraine will apply. Well, that's clearly stated by the aforementioned law. Again, I'll say that the principles of Annex 2 are even more conservative comparing to the Ukrainian legislation. So here there will be no conflict, no violations. I would also like to
знає про те, що відбувається, тому що Державна
uh,
аудиторська служба в цьому програмному періоді є офіційним
uh,
контролером. Тобто для тих, хто
draw your
ще
attention to the fact that you
сумнівається,
have
коли будуть
national
перевіряти
official
приватні
controller,
аудитори чи
and
державні
you
контролери.
know
Я
you
знаю,
will
що
be
хтось
subject
намагався
to
контактувати
audits.
аудиторів. Це не
The
діє. Тобто програмного
governmental
аудиту в цьому
controllers
програмному
might
періоді немає.
check
Це
you,
в
but
очах Державної аудиторської служби.
so that's the power of the state audit service. Another question about applicability of the requirements. Its requirements are provided by the consent of the Parliament of Ukraine.
Is it possible to announce the acquisition of infrastructure works for the value of the design and estimate documentation if it exceeds the project budget?
Is the question for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's your
Okay.
question. It's quiz
It's
for
my
you
question
now.
because the only one in English. Okay. I mean, look, this is not about Annex 2. This is about the program rules. Okay, so you have to go to your grant contract, the one that you sign with the managing authority of your program, and see which is the flexibility that you have in the project budget. So I mean, in principle, in terms of launching it, I mean. You can launch it, but then what if the amount exceeds what you have in the budget line? It's possible that then the amount that exceeds might not be eligible. But it's not in, I insist, it's not in Annex 2. This is in your grant contract. Look at the rules for flexibility of budget in your grant contract. Consult the joint secretariat of your program, and when this situation, a specific situation happens. Okay, that would be my recommendations. Don't take risks. This. But from Annex 2 point of view, there's no problem. But it's an issue of budget. You continue, Tatiana?
Yeah, the next question is a bit tricky. What should we include in the tender for staff to make it working after the project is ended and after the final to submit the final report and get the final payment?
Again, sorry, can you on the beginning of the question?
What should we include in tender documentation and tender announcement for staff to make staff work after the project ended to prepare and submit final report and to get the last payment?
Sorry, I mean, Annex 2 is not talking at all about recruitment of staff.
Exactly. So
I mean, today we are not talking about staff recruitment. So this not
but
at all.
It's not even staff recruitment. Якщо ви оголошуєте тендер на контрактування,
if you open a tender for contracting a natural person, you're dealing with services, not staff. So if this is a service, then you just write terms and conditions for provision of such services, because it has nothing to do with the staff. Because it's about the staff, that different article will apply, especially if you choose the simplified system for expenditures. Be careful. When should we place an announcement in the official journal? After Prozoro or before? Well, you should do that at the same time. I think these two procedures should go in parallel. Yeah, maybe a difference by a day or two, but it's not like you have a 1 week gap between the two announcements.
Albert, the next one, you can do it in English as well. If the procurement plan foresees a division by VPS, some of you may... You see it, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I have a mixed procedure, so I mean, I have in a certain moment I can buy supplies which are combined with some training or some services combined with these supplies, or I have works, and I also have, I don't know, the quality control of the works, which is a service, and they are all in the same tender. The tender that the type of tender that prevails is the one with a higher weight. I mean, with a higher amount. So you have to break down the tender, saying, okay, of these 100,000 euros, 80,000 is works, 20,000 is services, then it's a works contract. So you break down among services, equipment, and works, and the one with a higher amount is within the same tender, and the one with higher amount is the one that prevails. This would be the answer.
І останнє питання: якщо декілька статей бюджету разом більше за 2,5 тисячі євро, чи можемо ми окремо їх закупити, наприклад, це тренінг, семінар, конференція?
About something more than 2,500 euros question. Again, you need to make sure that you will not have artificial splits. So, to give you an example, if you buy tickets for Ukrainian railroads and you know that your project will be related to trips during 2 years, then in this case, if you buy one ticket will be violation. That will mean you're splitting your tender artificially. So, but without specific context, it's hard for me to give you the answer. So, the principle is to avoid any artificial split. That's the key point.
So far, no further questions. Шановні учасники, ми будемо, в принципі, якщо ви будете
Esteemed
задавати питання, ми
participants,
так і
you
будемо
will be
відповідати
adding
блоками,
questions.
тому
We
якщо
will
у
be
вас виникає питання, не
answering
соромтеся,
them
пишіть.
by blocks.
Наразі я оголошую
Now, I
наступний
announce
опитування.
the next quiz. It's very short, just 4 questions. So keep in mind what you have just heard. Try to give the right answers the way you feel it. That's anonymous quiz again. If you make a mistake, not too bad, you are just learning. So our goal now is to just bring all of us to the common denominator so that we can read from the same page. Whenever you talk to National Management Authority or any public authorities, etc., so that you do not get confused in between the procedures.
Yeah, and I marked the questions in the slide as answered, so we only have it blank now. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on time, yeah, so far?
We're on time?
We're on time. We're on time.
Perfect.
Okay, good.
Так, я бачу 52 учасники,
I
53.
can see 52 participants, 53, but let's do it right. 85 answered the first question, so hopefully we'll have the same at least number for the second one.
Я бачу 73, 4.
I can see 73, 74.
In the meanwhile, while you're answering, don't cry, Tatiana. I mean, we will succeed. But in the meanwhile, I put in the chat the link for the sanctions, what I mentioned. Okay, so full freedom. Be careful with the sanctions. There are a number of countries where there are sanctions, not necessarily to everyone. So you have lists of persons and institutions, but be careful with the sanctions.
Well, public beneficiaries on the safe side because the Treasury Service will never make the payment. It's more risky for private beneficiaries.
But it depends. I mean, I don't know. For example, you cannot buy supplies from Israeli colonies in the West Bank.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
it's same. Yeah, but it's the same for public beneficiaries. So it's controlled by Treasury Service, but for private not. For private supposed to watch it very carefully because they have free. Yeah.
Okay, so you get the link. Okay.
Окей. Я бачу, що у нас уже більше активна участь, 92 учасники.
I see people became more active, 92 participants. That's a pleasure to see. So I'm closing 93, closing the quiz. Thank you. We'll have more. And now, let me share the results. So, first question is, according to the first presentation, a beneficiary intends to buy supplies worth 350,000 euros. So where should they publish the announcements? Of course, in view of the amount, it should be in OJEU, and that should be in ProZorro. So both resources have to be used. I'd like to also stress that it doesn't mean that that's the only places you should place your announcement. The more platforms you're using, the better, and it will be better for you from the point of view of positive audit trail, because when you show that you placed it wherever you could, that would mean that you really applied efforts to get this equipment at the best price with the best quality. Then preliminary market consultations before the tender are allowed, prohibited, recommended. Well, they are allowed, but you need to keep in mind that these consultations should comply with very specific procedures without overpassing any limits that would allow for interpreting these consultations as conflict of interest. And then Ukraine is not EU member. What about environmental eco requirements? And then there are options. Well, I'm pleased to see that many of you gave the right answer, that the status of Ukraine does not matter. It doesn't depend on the status, but depends on who pays. So these are grants, these are money of European taxpayers, so here's certainly environmental legislation you shall apply. Actually, the environmental provisions are very important for you, so when you apply, you saw in your application this requirement, and then selection processes. Over here I see some problems with the answer because you need to give the answer that these criteria are different. That's very typical mistake. That's one of the key points, because it often leads to declaring a procurement as unlawful. So now we'll switch to the next block. Once again, I emphasize that the questions in the chat will never be answered. Please place them on Slido. And now I will move to the block. So by D, that's a section in the Annex 2 to financial agreement. So the name is the same. So we are moving step by step, section by section, and for you, this presentation just sends you to respective refers you to respective section of the documentation. So let's talk about technical specification and criteria. So this is what you have done before. It's not something like rocket science. Do not get scared. That's absolutely normal. That's just Annex 2 requires more details, more specifics. So pay attention to what is included in the technical specifications and pay attention that item 16 of financial agreement is one of the key criteria for acceptance of. I understand you will read the Ukrainian text, but actually because of interpretation, you may want to also refer to English option.
Знову таки, говорячи про публічність, ви маєте максимально забезпечити рівний доступ всім потенційним постачальникам даного товару, роботи чи послуги.
Again, when it comes to publicity, so everybody should be properly notified. So publicity should be provided for in a broad sense of the word. Then, including characteristics, the characteristics that you include should be really specific and not vague, but apart from that, there is a nuance. Well, one of the most typical mistakes, sometimes it is intentional or and not intentional, so we're not going to look into that, whether that was intentional or unintentional, but non-intentional rather, but sometimes you can see that it was copied and pasted from the characteristic of a specific item, and a trade mark was stated. So having stated the trademark, that means that you violated equal access principle, because you limit yourself to one vendor, which is unacceptable. So you can limit yourself to one trademark, but you can also include the similar or analogous ones. So you cannot stick to one scene. So you can state what is desirable, what the specific scenes are, but you have to add this statement that similar or analogous ones could be acceptable as well. So what kind of characteristics should be included? That's the quality level, the environmental and climate criteria. And here I would like to attract your attention to the fact that the effective program documents pay a lot more attention to environmental and climate criteria performance. So the equipment that you are going to procure should be environmentally friendly. So that's a very important element. You shouldn't overlook or ignore these aspects. So it is desirable under Ukrainian legislation, but it is mandatory under Annex 2. Accessibility criteria for people with disabilities, that's abiding by one of the horizontal principles. So anything you're doing should be accessible to all levels and procedures of conformity assessment. The criteria to that performance and use of supply, if there is supplied, then how it is arranged, safety or dimensions. That's something that you should mention in your documents. For the contractual works, these are the characteristic, that's quality, design, and costing. The requirements for testing, inspection, and acceptance, methods and techniques of construction. So all technical specifications should be there to make sure that upon completion of a project, the object is going to be recognized as the one that meets the stated goals. So it's not that you sort of take money and lose something unfinished just because some technical characteristics have not been complied with. As to awarding, with respect to awarding, there are key criteria. That's minimum technical requirements. There shouldn't be any exclusion, because if there is an exclusion, then that's a violation of equal access. Then selection criteria. Selection criteria should be approved prior to announcing the procedure. So in other words, you cannot change criteria when the procedure has been started. You cannot change criteria when the offers have been submitted, the bidding has started. You can use the several methods for the most economically advantageous tender, lower price, lowest cost, best price quality ratio. And again, these are the scenes that you've seen before. Now, let's remember that we also have an important element, that's a declaration on the absence of conflict of interest. That was something that was subject of heated discussions before, when public beneficiaries refused to include this document because it's not directly required by the law of Ukraine on public procurement, etc. And there were questions and there were discussions saying that we included this one as this provision annex to eyes or those all eyes, and clearly states that declaration is mandatory for all. Absence of the declaration is going to have repercussions in the form of the financial sanctions, so don't take the risk by not including this document. As to selection criteria, there are several groups. Again, you have them clearly specified, and you can go step by step and pay specific attention when you're going to identify the criteria depending on the nature of your procurement. And they are legal and regulatory capacity for professional activity. Let me quote an example from my practice as an auditor and expert in law. So procurement of construction equipment, and allegedly everything looks good, and when you look at the supplier, that's the company that is not known to anybody, and naturally it's not a producer. We just start comparing prices, and we see that in comparison with the market prices, the price is 20% higher. So we look at the supplier. Supplier is the partnership with unknown name, no website, nothing. And there is an FB page and several posts. That's just an example when there is no professional capacity. So this criteria is not complied with. I'm not going to tell you what were the consequences for that, I think you understand. Economic and financial capacity. How a particular supplier is going to be able to honor the commitments. Again, if you talk about economic and financial capacity and look at the previous stages, beneficiaries know what to pay attention to when they pick up the supplier technical and professional capacity, to what extent it's possible to perform. It might be ironic example then again from auditing experience that I have. One of the non-profit organizations organized training for educational purposes. It was not within the framework of our project, so that's a different donor, but that's a very good example to show what technical and professional capacity means. The question was, they organized sessions for elderly people for them to learn how to cook, to take care of plants, to embroider, to make clothes, and the service supplier was Mr. X, who was teaching cooking, embroidery, sewing, extremely genius or talented person, but we do understand that it wasn't true, and there was no professional capacity, because these are specific purposes that are required, and the person that is to provide these services should have respective education, experience, skills, etc. Common sense tells you that you cannot master 8 different professions that are allegedly covered by the trainings that he was doing. As to quality criteria, they are clearly specified in Annex 2 to financing agreement. That's technical advantages in comparison with the origin, aesthetic and functional characteristics designed for all users, social, environmental, innovative characteristics. Again, we remember that social, environmental are the ones that are within the framework of horizontal principles, production, provision, and training at any stage of life cycle. Again, when we talk about expenditures, we remember that these expenditures should be proportionate and eligible, not only when we are procuring this item and we start using it. And when we talk about quality price ratios, then we have to also assess how this item would require, how much money would be required for maintenance. Then organizational staff assigned to the contract after sales services, technical assistance, delivery conditions, all of these are the things that should be included as what criteria. Then the weight of each criterion should be established in advance and well known. That's one of the aspects that is really very sensitive, and it shouldn't be subject to any changes following the announcement. So the rules are announced once and they have never changed. And before I give the floor to Albert, no, I'm going to give the floor to Albert now, and then we'll have another quiz. Albert, the floor is yours.
Sorry.
Yes.
He was speaking with the microphone closed. Okay, good. So I can finalize this presentation. Now we are a little bit delayed, Tatiana.
No, we are not. We're just in time.
Just in time? Okay.
1 minute,
so
it's not a problem.
not a problem. Okay, good. So let's talk briefly about other points, and let me insist again. We're just doing a fast walkthrough the Annex 2, but you will need to read. So you see here there are a number of points that from 22 to 29 that have to be read: time limits, contacts, submission electronic, abnormally low tenders. So all these elements are in all these points in Annex 2, and some of them are different from the national legislation. So please have a look. One of the elements that is different is the time schedule, and it's clear that there may happen that there are shorter delays in your legislation, but these are the delays that you have to apply. These are the number of days that you have to apply. So what you cannot do is saying, look, I send an invitation to tender to someone in a simplified procedure, and then I don't, I give them 1 week. So, it's 30 days. So basically what it means is that, you remember Tatiana at the beginning was saying procurement is a complex process. It's not only complex, it takes time. And this is inevitable. And of course, the bigger the amount, the longer the process, but it takes time. So it means that you need to have a good procurement plan and allowing for all this time schedule to be there. Then again, you have a second element, which is once you award the contract, you have the so-called, in English, standstill period, which means that from the moment where you inform the unsuccessful tenderers that they didn't win the tender till the moment you sign the contract, there has to be a minimum delay, because you need to give enough time for the losers to provide information to complain for a complaint. So you cannot sign the contract immediately. So you inform to the successful tenders, and then you need at least 10 days if you inform by electronic means before signing the contract. So again, more time. So you have time from the for the publicity. You have time, of course, that is not how much time you take for the evaluation is up to you of the tenders. But then you have time once the decision is made and the letters are sent until you sign the contract. So it's not something done fast. Procurement cannot be done fast. And of course, you have all the time for the preparation of the tenders. On the contract performance, there are very few elements in Annex 2. The first one, it may seem evident, but just let's stress it. The contract cannot start before the signature of the before the signature. You need to sign and then you can start. I have seen it numerous times, especially with the service contracts. So please, if you could start, no. You sign the contract and then you start. This is the first element. Second element, be careful when you modify a contract, because of course, when modifying a contract, what cannot happen is that you are somehow perverting the tender, that perhaps the winner would have been another one, or perhaps other people that decided not to submit a tender would have submitted a tender had they known these changes. So there are strong limitations on what can be modified in the contract. So go to point 30 on this, and you can read which are these limitations for modification. So please be very careful on modification. Then we have the guarantees. We have the performance guarantee that it is, again, these elements are different from your national legislation. So it's a maximum of 10% of the total value of the contract. And then there are also specific timetable for the release of the guarantee. So once you have the guarantee, once the contract is finalized, depending on the complexity, you can have 30 days, or you can have 60 days or 90 days, but in any case, you are obliged to release the guarantee of performance in a certain amount of time. On top of the guarantee of performance, you can have a different type of guarantee, which is a guarantee requested to cover the contract liability. In works, this is quite typical, that you request, you finalize the work, so the work is done, you accept the works, but then there's 1 year, for example, there's 1 year where the contractor has to respond if there are any deficiencies in the construction. So this kind of guarantee can also be requested, again, with a number of limitations, maximum 10%. You cannot have this guarantee at the same time than the other guarantee. You can, there are a number of limitations on all these that can be found in point 31. Okay, so this is and with this very fast walkthrough, again, what we strongly recommend you is read. Please read it with calm, at the right moment also. So don't try to read it tomorrow. So you read it when you need, but read it read it in detail. And this is our most important recommendation today, and we will insist a lot on this. Diana, we have quiz questions. What have we got now?
We do quiz.
We do quiz,
Mhm.
and then some questions.
We have, but I guess we can wait a little bit.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll merge them.
You're the boss.
No,
You decide.
everything.
You decide.
Так, зараз ми з вами робимо ще одне коротеньке опитування. Теж
Okay,
4
another
питання всього лише.
quiz
Дякую
for
за
questions
запитання на
only.
слайді.
Thanks a lot for your questions on Slido. I've seen them and I will answer them. And some of the questions that I see there are going to be referred to the national authority because that's something that is within their competence and mandate.
Ще раз для тих, хто пише питання в чаті, вони не будуть розглядатися. Будь ласка, все, що ви
Once
хочете
again, for those who write in the
запитати.
chat, your questions will not be answered. You need to go through Slido site.
Якщо загубили посилання на слайд, ще раз в чаті пишу.
If you lost the link to slides, I will repeat it here now in the chat.
Так, у нас уже є
All right,
51
all right.
відповідь.
Have 51
Дякую за активність.
responses. Thank you.
Дуже приємно бачити, що мало
I'm
помилок,
pleased
але все
to
ж
see
є.
very few mistakes. Still, there are some.
Так, 76.
It's
Ну, якщо
36.
дотягнемо до 90, так як минулого
If we
разу, це буде
get to
просто
90, that
чудово.
will be just
Оскільки 2
great.
хвилини, я можу ще дати
We
1
still
хвилину
have a
для
couple of
коментарів.
minutes. I can add 1 minute more.
Here we have almost 90. Tatiana, I think that we can.
No, maybe
We have 90. Okay,
Yeah.
good, good, good. Now we have 90.
We had 92 last time. This is
Okay,
why
come on, come
I
on.
feel it's moving.
Okay.
Тобто я зупиняю наразі голосування. Це якраз
So I'm
3
finishing the
хвилини.
quiz,
Ну, тепер
3
можемо подивитися,
minutes.
що ми тут отримали.
So let's see what we have.
Перше питання, воно
First
прямо
question.
стосується моєї презентації.
That
Частини презентації
is part of my presentation about the trademark. Somebody said yes, not exactly. Some say it's discrimination that's too conservative. Possible, but you need to mention analogs. Now I'm pleased to see the 77 heard about that the declaration on absence of conflict of interest is compulsory, no matter whether you are public or private. That's a must. It's not just recommendation. In absence of such declaration, there will be problems. That award criteria, they need to be defined. Again, I'm pleased to see that 72% gave the right answer. It should be done in advance prior to putting it, opening the tender, because that's the right thing to do according to Annex 2. Before you open the tender, you know in advance, and the bidders know in advance what the rules will be for the. So next question deals with the last block, and Albert emphasized that, and actually 83% are right. We're pleased to see that you're listening very attentively and that we can deliver information about the things which are not that simple. So now we have 3:44 Kyiv time. We can take 5 minutes to answer your questions.
Yeah, I will start, and I will take the first one. Can you take the second one?
Second one? Well, I'm on the field split.
Yeah, about split, yeah.
Okay.
You can do it. So I start, щодо першого
розбивку.
питання, з метою недопущення
Про-
різного трактування, чи буде офіційний документ
Про
роз'яснення щодо правильного
Коди.
поєднання національного законодавства та додатку 2. Ну, це
Well,
запитання не
but
до нас.
we can
Такі документи
submit a
подавати
document
не
about
можна.
combination of
Українська
Annex
теж
2 and
документи подавати не
Ukrainian
може.
legislation.
Якщо ви вважаєте, що
I
такий
mean,
документ буде
European
необхідним,
Commission
ви можете
cannot issue
звернутися
such a
ініціативою
document.
до
You can
національного органу управління.
contact the national authority requesting such a document, and then it will depend on what answer they give to you. To be honest, I'm not sure.
Albert, split?
Yes, on the split. I mean, yes, if I understand correctly, so the idea is, let's say you are buying computers and you have 3 computers in one budget line, 2 computers in another budget line, and 3 more in another budget line. Then, of course, you have to sum up. I mean, what's determining the procurement procedure is not the budget line; it's the nature of the acquisition. Okay. So the same for the trips. So you have trips in several places. Look, it doesn't matter. You have 3 budget lines with trips, but at the end it's all the same. So you have to put them all together. So on this, be prudent. You saw in the thresholds that you will not have to go to complex and open tender often, but I mean it's not worth to take risks on this. Of course, it may happen that you need to work with lots in a certain moment, or that you are buying all this equipment, for example, in different moments during the project lifetime. But in this case, I mean, if you don't need to buy all the computers now, it has no sense to make one procedure with all the computers now, perhaps, but you use the type of procedure with threshold of the sum up of all the equipment. Okay, so you do it 3 times, but you use the procedure for the sum up of it, if it is in different times. If you can do it in one go, perhaps with different lots, then that's another alternative. But be very careful with artificial split, yes.
Наступне питання, поясніть, будь ласка, простою мовою, чим відрізняється критерій відбору і присудження?
What the difference between criteria of award and selection? So selection is when you choose those who actually can and are capable and can deliver the service of the work. Award when you select the best. So say if you want to organize training, for instance, for any type of, say, the right use of, say, informational system. So on selection criteria, you can choose specific training centers or universities that have respective specialists who can do these trainings. So you put together your pool of potential bidders, say training centers, universities, and or there are individual entrepreneurs that can offer such services. So these 4 individual entrepreneurs will not fall under your criteria because Your criteria is a training center and institution. As far as the award is concerned, you will receive different offers for different type of provision of services, offline, online, different prices, and here you use the award criteria. You choose the best quality of what you want to have and the best price. So say if your priority is hybrid training in view of the situation in Ukraine, so for you, the award criteria, the successful bidder will be the one who offers the best price for this type of hybrid training. And then about the terms, we already mentioned that if the period for compliance cannot be technically ensured, like 10 days, we'll discuss how this possibility can be ensured. The Prozor provided templates can be used, of course, if they match the Annex 2, the term for bidding until you wait for the bids to come. Is my understanding correct that the individual entrepreneur cannot ensure good quality of services? Not exactly. Actually, if you go to this individual entrepreneur's web page and they say they can provide anything, from tractor to training. Then the over budgeting, I mean, if the expenditure is higher than expenditure of the budget line, then can we enter into agreement? Well, I'm not sure I understand your question correctly, so just to correct me if I'm later on, but from what I can see, your question is whether you can enter into agreement if a budget line is higher. I mean, if the amount is higher than the budget line, actually, so you have official thresholds and you can actually look at them because another question relates to specific project. Open tender, can you describe it in more details? What is simplified procedure and invoice?
Can you explain short the difference between single tender and direct award?
Well, I mean, yeah, the single tender basically is that when it's a direct award, which is sorry, I mean again. So the difference between single tender and direct award, you mean?
Single tender, direct.
So this is the same. I mean, it's the same. So basically,
and simplified procedure.
Simplified procedure. You're obliged. It is compulsory to invite at least 3 tenders. Okay, this is one of the main elements of the simplified procedure. In the single tender, you could invite only one if you wish. That's why it's called single tender or direct award, because you could invite only one. It is not described as such in Annex 2, because simply the only thing you have to do is to have all the procurement documents that are mentioned in point 14, okay, except the contract notice. So on that sense, it's not so different. And then there are little differences. For example, there are some elements below 15,000 which are not compulsory. But the difference between the two at the end is only that in one, it is compulsory to invite at least 3. In the other one, it is compulsory to invite 1, and you can invite more. So apart from little details. So this would be the difference. But of course, I insist, we recommend that even if you are in a single tender, so even if you can invite only 1, please invite more. Okay. I don't know if it is clear enough. May I say something about the question at the beginning about the selection and the award, which is in the slide that we showed to you. In the selection criteria and exclusion criteria, the answer is always yes or no. It's very simple. It's a question. It's a requirement that we put to the provider, and the provider has it, yes or no.
Oh, no.
In the award, we are scoring. So we say which is the best price. So we put the 30 points to the price, or to the quality of the proposal, or the experience of the team. I mean, so, and there we give a scoring. So 3 points for this, 4 points for that, and then at the end, the one who gets more points get the award. So whenever you can answer yes or no, it's a selection criteria. It's a requirement with a selection. Whenever you are putting scoring, it is an award criteria. That would be perhaps an easy way to distinguish. I don't know which question we are now.
Just two questions. I can answer very fast to them. Що стосується, ви не зрозуміли, не дуже зрозуміло ФОП, який має купу кведів.
Individual entrepreneur who can do a lot of different kinds of work. Can I consider such? Again, you know, you can register a lot of different types of work that you can do as an individual entrepreneur, but if we talk about individual entrepreneur, probably such entrepreneur would not be technically capable to do what you want them to do. Let's say we have a single provider of agricultural equipment. They offer $200,000, and then you have an individual entrepreneur who offers $220,000. You understand, I think, very well that it's not about the right of this individual entrepreneur to do the work, but about the capability of whether they can do it.
Tatiana, in this case, I mean, it's again, it's an issue of selection criteria. So I can put requirements on the minimum technical capacities and financial capacities of the providers, and this is it. So I mean, if I have a very big work, and I mean, I can say that, for example, so whatever company that provides an offer should have an annual turnover, so the annual invoicing of more than at least the double of the amount of the work, something like this. So these are the kind of criteria that I can use to try to find the right provider. Yeah. Sorry.
І останнє питання, що стосується закупівель, да, тому що там
The last question about the procurement. There were some other questions. They have been mostly answered. Do I need to procure through the team procedure? Is the same as during the previous period. We had the authorized person for procurement, but you can create also the tender committee. So here you need it. If we have not given you full answer for one of your questions, you can reword the question if you feel like you didn't get the answer. And now we are moving forward with the next presentation. It's on templates.
Albert?
No, sorry, all of them are answered? Sorry?
Yeah, all answered.
All answered. Okay, so surprisingly, we're still on time. So sorry, let me close this. We move forward, no stopper, but I mean we are approaching the last presentations now. I saw that there was a question also on templates. So let's answer very fast on templates. Oh my God. Okay. This is the one, yes. So the templates. Basically, on the test team has been working together with managing authorities in the development of a compilation of templates. Okay, so this is optional. It's not binding document. It is not mandatory to use all these templates. But if you wish to use them, you may use them. Okay, so this is the first message that we give. It is published in the websites of at least the Black Sea and the Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, Ukraine, and perhaps not yet in the Poland, Ukraine. And I didn't have the confirmation, but the templates are there, and you can use them. On these templates, what we did is, of course, get a lot of inspiration in Prague. But for example, there's some element in Prague, for the ones who used Prague in the past, that was not there, which were templates for single tender precisely. So now we have 10 templates for single tender that have been developed by other programs. So we compiled a little bit in some cases by the European Union, in some cases by the programs, in some cases by Prague. What's clear is, first of all, you can use your national templates. So this is not the problem. So in Prozoro there are lots of templates that are usable. So I mean, there's no problem for using them if you wish, so if you prefer. If you are not using Prozoro, you are a private organization, you can use your own templates. So I mean, the issue is that it's not compulsory, but it's a tool that TESIM, in collaboration with the managing authorities, has put at your disposal. There are some elements that are not there at all, and that, for example, you could find in Prague, which is on one side the contracts. So there are no contracts. Up to you. So you use your own template or use your national template for contracts. Are also in terms of reference. I mean, these are very complex elements that can be very specific. So we fully trust that you can, on the technical content, you can go to point 16 where you have alternatives. So it's up to you. On the contract, it's also very simple in point 14, which are the minimum elements that have to be there. The rest is up to you. So please do not hesitate to use them. In any case, these templates are not there. Despite all this, we have, okay, so option 1, your own templates, or national ones. Option 2, the templates in TESIM. We have 63 templates. And this is what we developed. And well, I mean, you can use them if you wish so. If you are using your template, please check compliance. Check compliance. I mean, we insist all this issue of templates is optional, but please check the compliance. What we cannot, you cannot afford the risk of procuring as usual. We are insisting a lot on this. So especially on the content of the contract or on the content of the invitation to tender. I mean, please go to the point 14 and you read it. In this compilation of templates, you will find some general templates. For example, the declaration on honor. This is important because the declaration on honor has very specific content, which is compulsory according to the financial regulation. So you have to use that declaration on honor, not another one. So it's not only using a declaration on honor. On that case, I would really strongly recommend you to use the declaration on honor that it is in this compilation, because it is very extensive and it's you are sure that you include all the elements that are in the financial regulation. So this is a first recommendation. On the tenders, in the international tenders, when you are publishing to the official journal of the European Union, we simply propose you to use the templates that are there. So there are some templates there for the contract notice, etc. So use them. They're in English, but in any case, you have to publish in English. Then we have some templates on service tenders, on supply tenders, on works, and then we have also on evaluation, on all the elements for the evaluation, on the award, and also one template, I think, on negotiated procedure. Okay, they are there. You can mix. So there's an alternative. You can in the same procedure. Some of the templates are yours. Some of the templates are adapted. Are the ones that we are proposing. So this is a little bit your option. There's no obligation at all to use our own templates. The next element would be well, the templates are in English. That's clear. So the templates that we propose, the templates in the compilation are in English. They are going to be used by a lot of countries, not only Ukraine. So I mean, they are in English, but for sure you can use your local language. You can use Ukrainian. There's absolutely no obligation to do things in English, except for the big tenders that are published in the official journal. But for the other ones, use the templates in your own language. And the lower the amount, the less sense has to prepare documents in English. I mean, if you are buying. You are inviting 3, let's say, hotels for an event. I mean, you don't need to send all the documents in English. It has no sense. So send the documents in Ukrainian. There's absolutely no worries on this. You can use your own language. So in any case, and because we insist a lot on the time factor, please do not do in a hurry. Please try to take your time to prepare all these tender documents carefully. This is very important. Prepare the tender documents carefully. Ensure that they are compliant on one side, but remember the second slide by Tatiana. I mean, it's not only that we want compliant procedures. We want also that the provider that you select, that the winner of the tender is the one that is giving the best value for your project. So at the end, the main goal of your project is to achieve its results. So what we want is that when you procure something, whoever wins, it's not the cheapest, it's not done in a fast rush, it is well prepared, and therefore you can really choose the provider that will contribute better to the achievement of the results of your project. So please take your time for these documents. I know that the projects run very fast. We are all in a hurry. There's a lot of pressure, but please, you cannot fail on this. So this on templates. I don't know if there are questions on templates, Tiana, or not, or we go to the next presentation.
We answered questions about templates.
We already answered. So
yeah, we have some questions, but we will leave them till the end when we have 10 minutes allocated for the questions. So now we switch to the next presentation.
Which is you or me? Now I'm lost.
Mine.
Okay, you. Okay, good. Go ahead. Sorry, I stopped sharing.
Thank you. Так, ми переходимо до останнього
Now we are moving over to the last section of today's event. And well, we've talked a lot about the consequences, and we know that violations are punishable and how to prevent errors at an early stage. So this presentation is of a broader nature. It's not only procurement, but other expenditures that you might have. I am going to focus on public procurement, though, and the second part of the presentation, and that's for Albert. Albert would use numbers, how the mistakes could impact your final budget, and on expenditures being found eligible. So anyway, so that's going to be discussed with the focus on procurement. We are going to talk about in 3 dimensions. There's internal control, compliance, fraud, and corruption. When you talk about verification of the expenditures, the controllers pay attention, or rather auditing expenditures, the controllers pay attention to the internal control. And let me start with internal control. So what are the benefits of internal control? There are lots of definitions. The national regulation, there are official definitions of the Institute of Auditors. Here we are going to stick to the definition that runs like that. That's internal control of an organization, that is to provide reasonable assurance that operations or the project are effective and efficient, financial information is reliable, and contractual conditions and applicable rules have been observed. We had a question about procurement from private entrepreneurs. So you have to look at the performance and efficiency of this type of procurement. Can you prove that that's the person who can do it the best, whether that's supply, service, or works? So if that's the entrepreneur whom you picked up, then that's fine. But you have to remember that you are responsible for reasonable assurance of this. That's your responsibility. When you talk about internal control. One of the key aspects here is the proper delegation of functions, irrespective of the size of organization. So when one person is in charge of procurement, for assessment, for payment, for acceptance, then, well, I do understand that in small organization that's an accountant that would be in charge of everything, but these are conflicting type of functions and they should be segregated, and that's going to be a sign for an auditor that the system of internal control is working fine in your organization. So that's something that is well taken care of at the institutions that are funded from the public budget, because there is a requirement in terms of internal control there, and it works there well. You have to provide for effective approval of points, whose responsibility is that. It might sound like, bureaucratic thing, but somebody should be responsible for everything happening in the organization. You have to have a proper control environment. So control is not just a formal type of a thing. So you have a 3-page document regarding the system of internal control, and Mr. X is responsible. And that, no, it's not only that. It should be the control environment that should be adequate, because if something goes wrong, as the person, as an employee, I know what to do, whom to inform about that. Internal control is not only about exerting pressure on the employee and monitor what he or she is doing every minute. No, that's understanding of the responsibilities, what to do in this or the other situation, and in case of cyber attacks, for instance, because that might lead to the loss of data. Again, unless the company has an operation procedure, what to do in this or the other instance that shows that internal control system is deficient. If you talk about 3 main pillars of internal control environment, that means that it includes a code of ethics or a code of conduct. You might call it differently, but the most important thing is it should exist, and the employees are aware of that. And it's not just a formal type of thing that was approved and collecting dust, but that's something that is abided by. The next element is countering fraud. Public beneficiaries have to have this document because that's a requirement, but small organizations, well, just because there are not that many people, lack of time, so sometimes it is missing, but you are working with the EU taxpayers' money, so you have to make sure that internal control environment is there, and that includes anti-fraud policy. So that's preventive measures and procedures to employ, how to prevent fraud, and it's nothing, it's not a rocket science when you talk about anti-fraud policy. That's information awareness, training. So they're just, simple things that could be done. We do understand the difference between mistake and fraud and liability. The next is adequate recruitment procedures to execute the project, especially when it comes to public procurement. The staff should be properly trained and be competent. The third element is clear-cut organizational structure, the level of subordination, responsibility. We should have job descriptions properly done. I do understand that it sounds very bureaucratic for private beneficiaries, but it should be there, written operational procedure and archiving procedures. Albert used audit trail, so that's the term that we use. So archiving procedure are the ones that guarantee audit trail, because audited, it's not audited upon completion of the project. Archiving should be there because inspection could be initiated at any stage later if your project could be of any interest for the EU if there were any sign, for instance, or signal that something might have been wrong. I do understand that by law you have to keep documents for 3 years, but according to the program requirements, you have to store it longer. How to make procurement successful? You heard a lot about proper planning, and that's staff that is competent and has the right skills in terms of the nature procurement and item to be procured, because the staff can develop technical requirements, adequate budget, adequate selection, and what criteria, selection criteria are the ones that are eligible to participate in the tender, so whether they meet your requirements or not, whether that's a vendor, official distributor, and what criteria that's the price quality ratio. Audit trail, again, we keep talking about that. There was a question, okay, so if there is no website, so what? Well, nothing, but that then you would is part of the trail because you cannot trace the person. You have to remember that inspection or audit, it's not the end of the project yet. So there could be lots of questions at a later stage. So the more reliable audit trail is, the better you feel. Compliance with ethical requirements, that's one of the main elements of internal control, and compliance with the effective rules. Preventive is always better than curing. So we are talking about compliance here, and we normally start with who is engaged. So whether the project staff invested in knowledge of applicable rules, that's training, that's access to the information, and the next, whether they acted as usual. So we keep an eye on the changes and evolution and gain from practical experience. I can tell that when you conduct an audit, you ask, okay, why did you do that? Because the answer is, okay, so that's what we normally do, but rules and procedures have changed. So these are regrettable mistakes because they lead to the decrease in the payments or to the situation then when beneficiaries have to pay back. It's not really a fraud. These are just regrettable mistakes that could have been avoided if you kept an eye on the updates. As to the knowledge and some things that you should pay attention to, that's the publication of 2018, but it's not about Annex 2 to financing agreement. And that's just the collection of typical mistakes in public procurement. That has been collected by European Commission. It's not only CBC programs, but different programs. So programs are similar in a way, as well as the mistakes are similar in a way. So it's openly available. You can upload it. It's very simple. You can skip the first part of why it was done. Just pay attention to the sections that deal with red flags. So what you should do, what you shouldn't. And there you'll find lots of answers to the questions you raised today, why you should do this or why you shouldn't do this. Because Annex 2 to financing agreement is not always forbid to do something. The focus is recommended or not recommended. If it is not recommended or recommended to differently. It's your decision whether you want to do this or not. So the list of all these red flags is, well, actually, it is with explanatory notes, and examples will give you a better idea as to what to do, what not to do. That's in English, but that's really useful.
Досить таки проста.
The language is very simple there.
Приклад, тобто один з прикладів, які ви
That's one of
можете
the
зустріти.
examples that you might see
Найбільш
there.
поширені помилки,
That's a
тобто,
typical
наприклад,
mistake.
відсутність,
For instance, lack
відсутність тендеру або
of
неприйнятні процедури.
the
Знову таки ви бачите,
inappropriate
що, наприклад,
procedure.
тут,
Again,
зроблю highlight, тобто тут, наприклад, тобто незаконний поділ контрактів, це один з найбільш поширених
unlawful split
помилок.
of
Тут, наприклад,
contracts, the most
розписано, яким
typical
чином це відбувається,
mistake,
ви можете побачити
and you
конкретні
see how
приклади,
it
що не
happens,
треба
and
робити.
specific examples,
Недооцінена
what not to
вартість,
do, let's say,
недотримання правил публікації в розписі про
underestimated
публікацію,
contract
недоцільний
value.
розділ і, в
The
принципі, всі
whole section
порушення
deals with
дрібні,
publication and
не
all
дуже
the
дрібні,
violations,
вони в цьому
serious or
змінені.
less
Я далі не
serious,
буду
so all of them
зупинятися, у вас
are
буде
collected here.
час
So
потім
when you have
роздивитися ці
time,
збірки,
please go
скільки
there
зручно у
and
вас
take a
буде.
look at it. You'll have a link to it.
Далі, якщо все-таки
Then,
помилка
if
сталася, які будуть наслідки?
there is a
Можуть
mistake,
бути
so what are
впливом
the
на результат процедури.
effects? It
Наприклад,
might have an
повідомлення про
impact on
укладення
the result of
договору
the procedure. For
не
instance,
було опубліковано,
the
і без впливу на результат процедури,
contract
наприклад,
award
повідомлення
notice
про укладення
was not
договору не
published, and
публікується.
without an impact,
Відповідно,
if the contract award notice
іноді можуть застосовуватися
not
коригування.
published,
Знову таки, окремо договоримо про те,
that's
в яких відсотках коригування
again,
застосовується, що
it
таке, в
depends
принципі,
on
коригування.
the
Це коли
correction and the percentage of
частина
correction.
витрат
That's
на
when part of the
процедуру
expenditures
закупівлі буде
for the
визнана
procurement
неприйнятною. В
procedure is
залежності
found
від конкретного порушення, суми вони
inappropriate,
варіюються від
depending
10%.
on the sum. It
І
varies from
ще такий нюанс
10%.
шахрайство або
And
корупція. Ми знаємо,
the
що
fraud and corruption,
це
we know
досить таке
that
болюче питання для України, оскільки
it's a
зараз
painful
весь
issue
світ
for
якби
Ukraine.
звертає
The
увагу на те,
entire
що
world
відбувається у нас, оскільки дуже
looks
багато фінансове допомоги
closely at
надходить,
what
і,
is happening in
звичайно,
Ukraine due to large
відповідальність
amounts of
кожного
financial
за те, що
assistance, and
відбувається з
that's
цими
a
грошима.
personal
Ту
responsibility of
відповідальність програми
everybody
та національного
for these
управління,
funds.
тому
So
ви не
uh,
повинні, як то кажуть,
that's a
ображатися на те,
responsibility
що
of
програма
program and
стоїть
national
багато питань.
authorities,
Якщо
and
такі питання
you shouldn't
ставляться
take it
активніше.
personal when
Бенефіціари
there are
проекту вони
lots of
також
questions raised.
відповідальні за
Beneficiaries
протидію корупції.
are also in
Підрядники та
charge of
субпідрядники
counting
теж
corruption.
відповідальні.
Contractors,
Скажімо,
subcontractors,
у
they
цьому
have
етапі
their share of
взаємовідносин
responsibility. At
бенефіціарів і
this
підрядників.
stage
Багато
of
залежить від
relations
бенефіціара,
of
кого обираєте і
contractors
чому
and
обираєте.
beneficiaries, a lot
І
depends
якби
on
конфлікт
beneficiaries,
інтересів,
why
коли у нас
you choose these particular
присуджується тендер
beneficiaries, and
комусь, з ким ми
when
маємо
you award
зв'язок, це вже є
contract,
персональний вибір
so
та
the
цього
element of
споживача. І
conflict of
відповідно
interest and
контролери,
personal
вони
benefit is very
повинні це
important, and
виявити, але знову
auditors
таки,
should
коли це
identify that. But
відбувається на
again,
етапі
if it
виявлення,
is
це буде дуже
happening at
болюче для
the
бенефіціара,
stage of
оскільки частина
identification,
витрат
that's
буде
going to be
визнана неприйнятною.
very painful when
А деякі
part of the
показники, знову
expenditures
таки,
will be
червоні
found
прапорці, на які
ineligible.
нам необхідно звернути увагу, що може вважатися,
Yeah,
що може,
some
знову таки, це
red
я говорю, що
flags
це от корупція, так?
which we
Тобто
should
те, що
take into
є
account.
сигналом, що може бути вчинено
It doesn't
корупційне
mean it's a
діяння.
violation,
Це
but they
відсутність
can
письмової
flag
процедури
a
закупівлі,
violation, the
відсутність
absence
ротації
of
визначених
procurement
комісій, коли у нас
procedure, no
при
rotation
комітеті там
with
виконують
variation
одні
on
ті самі
commissions,
обмежувальне технічне завдання, коли воно
restricted in terms of
конкретно
preference
безпосередньо
when
ні
actually
торгової марки немає.
they are
Тобто там
done
і
to
вказано конкретно
actually
місце, якби
for
конкретно
specific
джерела
provider,
торгівлі, але тим не
evidently.
менш настільки описано, що потрібно
So the description is so
конкретного
detailed that only one,
А критерії
say,
відповідного
provider
присудження
can
це
do this
залежить від
selection, and
визначення
our
після
criteria
необхідна
have
процедура
not been
оголошена. Далі компанія ще
defined in
регулярно
advance. Then
і
the
найважче
companies
питання, ви
who
знаєте, що буде, якщо у мене
win
відбудеться
on a
компанія, яка в
regular
цих статтях.
basis.
Питання, ця компанія, вона,
So
в принципі,
let's say we have
забезпечити
such
вам
situation.
це.
Can such a
Якщо ви
company
можете
indeed
довести, що це компанія універсал,
ensure
ок. Це дуже рідко буває в практиці.
all kinds of services? Yes, of course, you can have universal companies that can do a lot. but there is always suspicion about the unlawful split of the contract, etc. So be prepared to answer these questions. No, small number of tenders and closed tenders when the bids are very similar, especially when the bids come from the same address. Keep in mind this criteria. That's another red flag. The absence of declaration of conflict of interest. They call it also declaration of integrity. So the tenders from newly created companies, here you need to be careful that means that such company quite can be capable of providing service of it. But if the company was established specifically to match the standard, then there will be questions. Long decision-making period, the introduction of changes to the contract right after its execution. We understand there is inflation, etc. Of course, the prices, the actual expense cost may change, and you have opportunities to adjust the cost, say, if the exchange rate changes, but if the contract is changed right after it has been executed, then certainly it's a red flag. Poor results, poor quality of the results, that means that and also when expenses do not match the market prices here. I can give you a lot of examples with regard to staffing, with regard to services. Be careful here. Do not tease the European Union. Do not irritate them with such things. Speaking about recommendations, we had the first presentation where you saw stages of the procurement, and the first stage is market research. That's what you start with. So you need to very carefully look at the market information, the level of competition. Keep in mind that when you develop the specification and criteria, again, they need to match set requirements, established requirements, and you certainly need to adjust them according to the procurement that you're doing. Of course, your documentation needs to be very clear and precise. E-procurement also is an important point. Of course, e-procurement would not, would maybe increase your transparency. You need to use open databases, for instance, and plus make sure that your contract delivery meets what is identified in the contract. Here are the basic things that we have discussed already. I will not repeat them. And now I'd like to pass the floor to my colleague, and he will give you specific examples of what can happen in case of mistake.
I think, Tatiana, we are almost at the end, and we are scaring a little bit, perhaps. But I mean, that was not our goal. Sorry, I don't know why I'm listening to the translation.
I'm sorry again.
Yeah. Okay, so I will share screen. Just a last element before the last quiz and the last messages, which is the issue of simplified cost options. You know that nowadays the budget of the project are built in a different way from the past. So let me very fast put an example on how the budget is built and what are the consequences of mistakes. So our main goal with this short element is to show you that procurement is really please take care, because a mistake in procurement now has a bigger impact. So let's have an example. It's just an example. So not all projects in all programs are built the same way, but let's put an example of a project where I have two budget lines that are built on flat rates, that is, that they are built on percentage of other costs. So we have, for example, staff costs, which are 20% of the direct costs of the other direct costs, and we have administrative costs, which are 7%. So let's put an example. Let's put an example of a project built without these elements. So I will have a budget like this, for example. But then what if I use these simplified cost options? Well, if I use the simplified cost options, it means that, first of all, the budget line 1, which is the staff, is not calculated on the basis of actual cost, of real cost, with the timesheets and all these things. It's simply based on a percentage, which is 20%. So it means that I put in the project accounting in the platform of the program. I put the equipment, the travel, the works, the services, and then 20% is calculated automatically. So I have a first element. Then on the addition of all these elements, I have a second percentage, which is the administrative costs. So these administrative costs are 7% of all these elements, staff, all the other budget lines. So this is 7,000 euros more. So then what I get here is that my budget is based on 4 budget lines on real costs, 2 budget lines on percentage. The 4 budget lines on real costs are budget lines that are linked usually to procurement, smaller or bigger, but they are linked to procurement. So while staff and administrative costs, they are not linked to procurement. So what happens if I make a mistake here? So if I make a mistake, I lose 100 euros, 1,000 euros. Then for 100 euros that I lose in any procurement procedure, because part of the expenditure or the whole expenditure was not considered as eligible, as acceptable, then I lose 27 euros more. So 100 euros lost in procurement is 27 euros lost in staff and administrative costs. That's why we are doing this training. That's why we are insisting so much that it is absolutely a must that you read very well, that if you have doubts, please do not hesitate to consult to your program bodies, but please don't fail on procurement. Tatiana, I made it fast. I hope it was understood. You're still there? Yeah?
Of course.
No, I see that most people is there still, so we really appreciate. We know it's a lot. It's a long training online, so we really appreciate that all of you that had the patience to be with us until the very end, which is most of you, as we see. So just one quiz on one slide, and then we are done.
Так, ми зараз знову переходимо до нашого наступного опитування. Це
So we
останнє
are moving
опитування.
with the next quiz. It's the last one, by the way, because we also will need to assess our event. Where some indicators also are applied, so now we'll have a quiz on the material that you have heard. Then we'll have another slide, and then we will get back to your questions. So I'm launching the quiz. Here we have some questions. You have a bit more time for that.
The way while the people is answering the questions, Tatiana, I mean,
Okay.
I would suggest, if everyone agrees, to take a picture at the end. I mean, I understand that during the training, a lot of people switches off the camera, but if it would be possible at the end when we finalize, just to allow us to take a picture between brackets, it would be nice. Okay, people is tired. We only have one answer. 2.
No, it's one answer because you see it's one, it's completed. And it's 7 questions.
Oh my God, 7 questions. Okay, good.
Yeah, but they're short.
Okay. You know, in the meanwhile, I don't know who's the guilty for that, but I see a very nice beach in the Caribbean. So
Yeah, I see.
I mean, this is not Ukraine. Come on, I mean, you're teasing us, huh? It's raining in my town now, so I mean, I see this. I'm envious. I'm jealous.
In my town, in my city, it's dark almost.
Yeah. In Barcelona, not yet, but almost.
No, in Berlin it's already dark.
Okay. So you see, now that we are waiting, that we have a number of novelties for these projects. So a a repetition again to the people with experience. Whatever you did in the past, it might not be applicable now. Please invest time in all this. Tetiana.
Ну, так, і з іншої сторони, я розумію, що, якби це абсолютно
From
нормальна
another side, I understand that your reaction
публічних
is absolutely normal, especially from the side of public beneficiaries. You certainly are reluctant to change on something that you have been used to, but if you read those rules carefully, you will see that they are quite fair. I remember there were many comments with regard to transparency of Prozoro and capabilities of Prozoro. It's very good that you made the emphasis on this, and hopefully we will interact with respective departments to make sure that you are allowed to follow these rules. Those who were in the training, ask the question, we do that in advance. So you need to really go through the rules. Yeah, we can see 54 full answers. Hopefully we'll have more, because again, the questions are quite simple. Just to make sure that you memorize what we've talked about. Even if you make a mistake, don't worry. We cannot see names, we cannot see any names. By the way, when you ask question on slide, we don't know who the question comes from. So everything is really unbiased, very impartial. So we have 55 complete answers. I will add 20 seconds. And then I will close the quiz. Let's make it 60 at least. Yeah,
We are
61.
there.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm closing it. And let's look at the results. First question is very simple. Internal controls for private beneficiaries, but it's very important. I mentioned, I have no worries with public beneficiaries. They were all forced, but internal control is compulsory. It's not a recommendation. That's a must. No matter what your status is, so the right answer is compulsory, mandatory. The internal control procedures are developed. Most of you gave the right answer. By the beneficiary, it's not the work for the program, it's your internal environment, your company, whether it's small or large. That's your responsibility. External controller just checks the extent to which your internal control system is reliable and whether it will be able to ensure the appropriate reporting from your side. So that's not just a formality, that's foundation that makes the controller believe that you're doing the right job. The distribution of functions. I'm pleased to see that even after the third hour, you're still concentrated. And the correct answer, that's compulsory for all beneficiaries. You will read in the manuals about distribution of duties, countering the fraud. Most of you gave the right answers. Yes, that's compulsory for all beneficiaries. Since we're talking about trans-border cooperation, we're not talking here about the national legislation. We're talking about the International Technical Assistance Program. Then another practical question. Director of Beneficiaries responsible for organization of tenders, acquisition, and accountant is responsible for preparation of financial reports. That's, yes, demonstrates, depicts the proper distribution of functions. That, let's say, the company XYZ wins tenders with at least 3 or 4 beneficiaries. Keep in mind that the controllers will pay attention. They will certainly check the beneficiaries once they see that the same company wins all the bids. Then what should be reaction of the controller? Ignore, of course, they would never ignore it because our controllers are professionals. They have been trained several times, but most of you gave the right answer. They will consider it as a red flag and will certainly pay more attention to such procurement. That does not mean that the procurement will not be recognized, but actually they will pay attention because they will not stop the procurement, because before making any action, they need to collect the proper evidence, and the simplified approach to expenditures. The procurement procedure was not correct, it was not conducted correctly. The right answer was given by just 15 of you. No, I'm sorry, more than half. That would reduce the budget lines, I mean those that were calculated on the basis of actual procurement. The wrong answer is that will have no impact, but only 2 individuals actually gave these wrong answers.
You done, Albert?
We have one last slide, unless there are some questions slide not answered, or not, we answered all of them.
No, I think you can, yeah, we can answer questions. We have questions on Slido.
So let's answer the questions and then we go for my last slide, and that's all.
Okay, then I will start. I will answer the questions, those are the fastest one, so not in an order they are, but, for example, я бачу тут, чи є посібник для приватних бенефіціарів, як раніше був для ТЕСів.
Guidance for private beneficiaries, as we had before for TESIM. No, we don't have this guidance because there is no point of developing it for private beneficiaries. We have the general fact sheet for public procurement that is effective for all, not only private beneficiaries. Is there an approved declaration of honesty? That's it, declaration of integrity, declaration of honor. It's in the templates. Document for lack of interest, that's a declaration of integrity. As to tender committee, I do understand the nature of the question. That's authorized person that is doing everything, and that's right. Under our legislation, you can set up a working group for public procurement, but item 12, the working group is a tender committee. So this provision was included to comply procurement of international assistance upon the decision of the contractor. The working group could be set up to consider tender offers. Then the authorized person is going to chair the group and to head the group. And the working group is going to participate in assessment of tender offers. etc. So you can set up the working group, and this way you comply with the law on public procurement, and you work in compliance with Annex 2 to financing agreement, which section on TESIM site has is going to have recording and presentations. When are you going to make it public?
So on this, I can answer. I mean, we are going to make it public on Monday. Give us 1 day to edit the video, etc. But it is a website that I will put now in the chat. Okay.
Okay, yeah, let's go for
Let's go for cooperation. Yes, yes.
go for cooperation. Yes, exactly. Чи виникає конфлікт, якщо один ФОП
Is
виграє
there
два тендери
conflict if one entrepreneur wins two tenders from one beneficiary? Depends on the nature of the tender. If that's the tender that matches the capacity of the entrepreneur, but if it's not, then there's going to be a red flag.
Sorry, we're going to upload not only the recording, but also all the slides. I mean, it's clear.
Далі, запитання від громадської організації. ГО може
A
використовувати
question from NGO: Can we use any platform for public procurement of Prozoro? You cannot use Prozoro directly. You have to get registered at a certain platform. So any platform that is under Prozoro is good for you. No limitations there.
Albert, I will translate.
Yes.
You'll help me, yeah, just to make to be on the same page. Why should we carefully apply simplified procedure in the case when the amount of tender does not exceed 300,000?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
Me neither.
Okay, so I mean, when the amounts are below 300,000 for services and works, and below 100,000 and above 20,000, so between 20 until 20,000 is a single tender. Then you get from 20,000 to 300 or to 100 for supplies is simplified procedure. Then you apply it. I mean, don't understand what means by applying carefully. You simply have to choose very well who are you inviting. I mean, there's nothing else you're requested to do, to choose very well who you are inviting. And this is why we had this presentation on conflict of interest, corruption, fraud, and all these things. But then you simply invite them and you go ahead with clear selection and award criteria, and that's all.
Далі, чи можна поєднати інструкцію до тендеру та тендерної документації?
Tender documentation and instruction to tender that are used under national legislation, can we merge these two? You can combine within one section several documents, but you have to pay attention to the following. So requirements of Annex 2 should be in the document, even if the title is different. So it's okay, but you have to comply with the requirements of Annex 2 when it comes not the title, but what is in the document. And then terminology. We got the message that you cannot change the terms in Prozoro on your own. If you need that, the national authority should be engaged, because technically it's impossible. So we will talk to national authority. I will tell the national authority that we've identified this issue and they have to address it.
Питання, яке зараз написано, чи правильно ми розуміємо, що громадська
Did we get right that NGO that does not implement costly projects can do with paper files. So there is recommended, and it's up to you. The most important thing is for you to do right, and you have to have audit trail, and you can prove, therefore, that you meet all requirements. There is no blanket requirement what to do for you. Reference to the guidance. Everything is available on our website in the section library. There is a hand raised, Tatiana. Good afternoon, dear participants. Good afternoon, Albert. Mariana, thanks a lot for this training. It was useful and educational for our partners and for the controllers. Let me just add one thing. A State Audit Service, as the national controller, created for all partners the guidance. That's just a set of documents that we recommend. That's the documents that should be uploaded into the system under the section budget lines. We completed it a week ago, so if you access our website, go to activities, find this section, State Audit Services as State Controller, and find documents for the partners and make use of these documents to speed up the process of your document preparation and facilitate the process of auditing for the controllers to avoid additional communication requests, etc., given the resolution that was issued on November 5. So let's just make our lives easier, and I'll post the link on the chat, and thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you for the info. We have several questions. Did we get you right that open tender that's for EU and Prozoro, a local that's just for Prozoro? It's not about the tender. You need to look at the amount of procurement, and publicity depends on the type of procedure and amount of the procedure, because there are different thresholds for the works and for the services. That's presentation one. Use of e-catalog, can we use it? You can. And the declaration of honor or integrity could be revoked here, because it is believed that those who are part of e-catalog are people of integrity by default. So thanks for fundamental training. Thank you. That's nice of you to say that.
Okay, Trine, so I will go to just a wrap up again. The repetition sometimes it's important. Just to give you the simple last messages. First of all, not only compliant but effective procurement procedures. So be sure that the procurement, on top of compliant, of course, it really contributes to your project results. First message. Second message, be careful with the mistakes. A mistake in a procurement does not mean that the full amount is not acceptable. There are percentages. It could be 5%, 10%, 25%, 100%. But in any case, on top of that, in the context of the use of simplified cost options, this has a higher impact. I said before, but forget the past is a little bit strong, but somehow forget a little bit the past. So we have new rules. Invest in time. Invest your time in knowledge. You are here today, so you invested already 3 hours, but probably you will need to invest more. Be careful with the template, so you have all the messages given during the event on the templates, on audit trail, and now Tatiana from the State Audit Service also gave you some indications on the documents that they are expecting, the controllers are expected to find there. So it's very important that you follow the right audit trail so that all the documents are there. This will speed up the the controls will ensure that the expenditure can be accepted and is eligible. So this is very important. Procurement needs time. Needs time. Do not hesitate on that. And please, of course, take into account that national bodies and the program bodies and the European Commission is now really putting focus on the prevention of any conflict of interest, fraud, corruption, and all these practices. So come on, this is public money to be used to support specific impact on your territory. You are supposed to use it well, and of course there will be a lot of persons checking and looking that you're using it correctly, and there's no hint of fraud or corruption in the use of this money. So that's it from our side. I mean, thank you so much. We are a little bit, people is leaving already, so come on, switch on the camera and we take a picture, if you allow me. And thank you so much for the patience.
Just one last question from the chat.
I'm
going to answer, okay?
Okay.
It's a question regarding templates. Шаблони рекомендовані, так, вони рекомендовані для всіх публічні
Templates are recommended for private and public beneficiaries, no matter what. That's available on the websites of respective projects, and they are in English.
Okay, not everyone switch on the camera, but smile. Here we are. I will take a second one, like a teenager. You never take only one picture. Okay, so thank you so much. And on Monday you will have all these materials and recording available. And please do not hesitate to contact your program bodies. Thank you so much also for the people from the Joint Secretariat, branch offices, managing authorities that have been with us during these 3 hours and helping us also in informing everyone that the training would take place. Let's hope that.
Last one thing, Albert.
Yes, tell me.
Ми дуже просимо наших шановних учасників оцінити нашу роботу.
We do request our participants to fill out the feedback form. Albert said it was the last slide, but no, not really. Okay, so that's really the last one.
I'm sorry, and thank you so much for the interpreter. I mean, we thought it was important to deliver this training in Ukrainian. I don't speak Ukrainian, as you have realized, so thank you so much. Also, people from the program bodies needed the translation from Tetiana. So thank you so much for the interpreters.
Дуже прошу, відскануйте QR-код.
Could you please scan QR code?
Так, дуже прошу, дайте відповіді на питання, які
And
поставлені.
answer the questions that you have there. And it's not just a formal scene. We try to meet your needs. If it was too complex, then that's important to know. Then we'll try to simplify the messages, but we need to know about that. If you praise us, that would be nice as well, because that means that 3 hours were valuable. So there was a question about procurement of medical equipment. That's a specific question on the project. So go to the program with this question. So we haven't ignored anything. So we monitor everything, but I told that we won't answer these type of questions.
That's all, folks. Yeah. Now, yes, Tatiana. 4 minutes before time. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, we have our weaknesses, but at least on time, we are exactly on time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Have a great day.
Bye.
До побачення.
Гарно, до побачення.
We have a question regarding publication photo from training in social media.
In what sense?
Can they publish it?
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. They can publish whatever they want. Yes, of course. I mean, yes, please.
Можете публікувати фото.
Так.
Albert, Tatiana, thank you very much for this training.
Thank you,
So-
Victoria, for staying with us.
Victoria.
And Tatiana,
Yes.
I also see Tatiana from
Yes,
National Authority.
our new member of our team, Tatiana, with us is today as well.
Thank you so much.
No, have a good evening.
So much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Goodbye. Tiana, should we close the meeting or you wanted to?
No, I'm leaving actually. I have another meeting.
Okay, so bye-bye everyone. So we close the meeting. And sorry, I stopped recording.